What's up, guys? John Conley here, unclejonssoap.com. Look, another video, and it hasn't been 3 months yet. So today I want to go through the top 10 soaping myths that I've run across over the years. Now, these may not be your top 10, but they're pretty high up there. I'm going to read them from this piece of paper because I'm old, losing my eyesight, and I have the memory of a... What was I saying? Anyway, here we go. Number 10. Microwaving oils is bad. Okay, guys, we're in 2021. Stop thinking everything like that, like microwaves and stuff like that, is witchcraft. You know, that if you don't do it with a certain stick cut from a certain tree at a certain phase of the moon, is going to be just turn out horribly, and the soap's going to make your arms and legs fall off and make you go blind, and just knock it off. This is just an example from the FDA website. The microwaves are reflected within the metal interior of the oven where they are absorbed by the food. Hang tight. Microwaves cause water molecules in the food to vibrate, they vibrate rapidly, producing heat that cooks the food from the inside out. Sorta. But anyway, if you've ever gotten a half frozen burrito, you'll know what I mean. The microwave energy is changed to heat as it is absorbed by the food and does not make food radioactive or contaminated. Now, sort of a misnomer. Yeah, it gets absorbed by the food, but it's all actually more like passing through your food. Sorry, I'm waving my paper around. Actually, it really technically passes through your food and excites the water molecules and gets them heated up and moving real fast so that it heats up your food. Relax. Don't be afraid to microwave your oils. Now, don't go crazy. Don't stick your coconut oil in the microwave for 5 minutes and think everything's going to be okay. Just, you'll learn your microwave and what it takes just enough to get that oil to the point where it's melted. And then you're fine. Number 9. Oils and lye need to be the same temperature. Absolutely not. Now, I will say that some essential oils and butters and additives will act a little weird if you don't get your temperatures just right. Generally speaking, that's being too hot. You really don't want your oils being too hot. But at the same time, I've never had a problem with 150 degree oils and lye water that I just mixed up. Like the crystals just finished dissolving and pouring it right into the oils, and everything was fine. Same thing with going cold and the other stuff. So, all this stuff of, you have to be within 10 degrees of each other, the lye water and the oils. No. Stop making this more difficult than it is. I've also heard some people say that if you're using super hot oils and lye water that's been cooling long enough that it's room temperature or just slightly colder will create volcanoes in your soap. Never had that happen. Ever. The only time I've gotten volcanoes is doing hot process, and by that point, before it ever happened, the oils and the lye water were already mixed and, emulsified, and were the same exact temperature. Number 8. You have to wait until trace to add essential oils and fragrances. And I guess the theory behind this is that if you add it too soon, the lye reacts with the essential oils or fragrances and makes them go off somehow or smell totally different. I've never had that be the case, never seen a scientific study that said that's the case, and it just doesn't happen. The only thing you got to be careful of is if you are doing hot process and you add your essential oil or fragrances too soon, you can flash them off by having your temperatures too high. But just because you come to trace doesn't mean all the lye is neutralized or used up by the oils at that point, and then it's okay to add your essential oils. Lye is lye is lye is lye, and your fragrance is what it is. It doesn't matter. When I make cold process soap, essential oils and fragrances go in right up front. The only time that changes is for certain florals or anything with high vanilla content that tends to seize the soap up. That I'll wait as long as I can. And somehow that seems to make a little bit of a difference. Number 7. Going above 10 to 12% superfat causes dreaded orange spots. DOS. I'm sure you've all seen this. Absolutely not. No one, well, I shouldn't say no one, some guy in a lab coat somewhere that has a job testing this stuff knows, but not many people understand exactly what causes dreaded orange spots. Sure, it could be from the extra oil in some cases. More than likely, it's from an oil that's too old to begin with, already rancid. But you don't, just because an oil went off doesn't mean you're going to smell it. That you can naturally tell that it went off. It could have been you contaminated it with your skin. You could have had contamination somewhere on your tools. It could have been an airborne something, bacteria. There's all kinds of stuff. Or the big one for many people is the soap doesn't get a chance to dry out properly. They either use too much water in the recipe, or they're in a humid area, or that room or the country they live in is too humid. I talk to people down in South America who have a really hard time curing their soaps because it's humid. So high humidity and not that soap not being allowed to cure in a decent amount of time will cause dreaded orange spots sometimes, not all the time. But very rarely does your superfat have anything to do with that. Oh, here's one of my favorites. When you get lye on your skin, like the lye water or the soap batter gets on your hand or something, neutralize with vinegar. Don't do that. This is an old wives' tale. Vinegar, yes, it's the opposite of lye. Lye is high in pH, it's a base. Vinegar is on the other end of the scale, it's an acid. That actually makes burns worse. Chemical burns require nothing more, most chemical burns require nothing more than fresh running, cool, room temperature or slightly cool, not totally cold water. Sometimes I like cold water. I'd just rather go for it. But all you need is water, guys. Don't waste your money and your time with vinegar. If you're making soap, chances are you're within 10 feet of a sink. Probably closer in most cases. Go to the sink, turn the water on, stick whatever affected area is in there under the faucet, let the water run, gently rub the stuff off to get rid of it. In fact, if it's an oil, if it's an oil, like the soap batter itself, I actually use a little bit of dish soap to help wash the area to get the oil off so that it's not sticking to me anymore. So please stop with the vinegar, guys. It's been too many years. We all know better. Just knock it off. Number 5, you have to get your soap to a thick trace or a heavy trace before you place it in the mold. What are you, trying to make your life more difficult? Stop. You really only need to get your soap, your oils, and your lye water and everything emulsified really well. That could be considered a light trace. That's it. Anything more than that is just a waste of energy. Now, if you're trying to create certain shapes or like a frosting, if you make like cupcake soaps and you want to pipe a frosting on, yeah, you want it to be a heavier trace so that, it kind of stays where you put it and stays in the shape that you make it. For just making soap and pouring it into the loaf, no. Especially if you want to do swirls, don't ever do a heavy trace. You can't. It won't work. How do you think those swirls happen? If they're going to full trace, there's no way that you're going to make those pretty little swirls. Yeah, I couldn't do that angle anymore. That hurts my neck. Adding an oil to soap at trace ensures that it will remain unsaponified or mostly unsaponified to use as your superfat. Absolutely not. Just because you got to trace doesn't mean that the lye has gone away. It means you've emulsified your soap. It means it's starting to have its chemical reaction and use up the lye. But it's not going to guarantee that whatever butter, fat, oil, or whatever that you put in at the end is going to remain by itself to be your only superfat. That is impossible to do. The only way to make sure that you have an oil left over to use as a superfat is if you make a 0% superfat soap, mill it, add in your fat, oil, or butter, mill it again, add in your fragrance, color, or whatever, mill it again, then extrude it like a commercial soap company would have with their automated machines. Other than that, you're not going to get to trace, add your little bit of cocoa butter and shea butter and kokum butter and whatever, and think that that's your perfect superfat. It just doesn't happen, guys. Don't even waste your time with it. Add it all up front. If there's a specific oil that you would like to be a better or bigger representative for superfatting, then add that in higher quantities in your original recipe. Oh, by the way, this doesn't work in hot process either. Just because you've gotten it to that, Vaseline stage and all that stuff does not mean that you adding, your ounce or two of shea butter is going to end up being your only super fat. It's just not how it works. But good luck trying. Number 3. I think I missed the count on the last one. Number 3. Adding more than 20% of coconut oil to any given soap recipe is going to make a drying soap and make you look like a lizard person when you're done. No, really. I've actually made all 100% coconut oil soaps with only 10% superfat, and they've been perfectly fine. They didn't dry my skin out. I didn't look like Mr. Alligator when I was done. Now, I will say this. When you make a straight coconut oil soap, you want to be right there way before you would normally be unmolding your other soaps. Probably half the time that it sits in the mold for normal soaps, you want to be right there at about halftime to pull that stuff out and cut it, because it gets hard. But if you're afraid of coconut oil soap, straight coconut oil soap, or a recipe that uses a higher percentage of coconut oil, if you're afraid of it drying out your skin, go with a little bit higher superfat. Don't worry about the DOS, we've gone over this. You can go 10, 12, 20. I've seen people go as high as 30% coconut oil soap. To me, that's too much. It's at that point, it's just not. Soap's main job to me is to clean, so I would bring that down. I wouldn't go more than 20% superfat for sure. Number 2, soaping hot always causes a faster trace. Sometimes, maybe, but you can't prove it, because I've tried. I've done it with hot process, cold process, hot oils, cold lye, hot lye, cold oils. I've done it every way you can imagine, without fragrances added, just the base recipe, and there is no way nothing changed. It didn't trace faster, slower. Now, if I change the ratios of oils, sometimes that will happen, but it really had less to do with the temperature and more to do with what oils I was using. You might have fragrances that accelerate trace. Fragrances. By the way, side note, I probably shouldn't get too deep into this, but you're going to start seeing less and less blue bottles up here after a while. And if you really want to know the details, you can email me at unclejonssoap@gmail.com, and I'll tell you my reasons. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I've taken issue with a couple things lately, and basically had people throw the problem in my lap and make it my fault. Perfect. Anyway, so I've had additives and fragrances and things like that that cause the soap to trace faster, but never a temperature issue. And the number 1 soap myth out there, soap making myth, bath and body product making myth is, oh, you got a rash? I've got a soap that'll cure that right up. Stop doing that. Your soap is not medicine. Essential oils are not medicine. The plant extracts that you put in are not medicine. I'm not saying that some essential oils don't help some things, or some things like, putting jewelweed in soap doesn't help with poison ivy a little bit and stuff like that. But first of all, you don't know the quantities. You are not most. There are a couple chemists I know that make soap, but they're a little bit of a special breed, and they tend to overcomplicate the process too. But anyway, you're not a chemist. You don't know. You don't work for a pharmaceutical company as a chemist, and you know what quantities of what thing actually do help to either cure or alleviate symptoms or whatever. But your soap does not cure eczema, psoriasis, morning sickness, cancer, gout, or personality disorders. Soap gets you clean. It can help stop the spread of germs, like with poison ivy even. If you catch it early enough and you do general washing when you're done working in the yard or garden, the soap can help wash the oils off that would cause the bumps to come up and start itching, and then you claw at them. But you still can't even say that. A, not only are you a doctor, but B, it's illegal. It's illegal. Do people get away with it? Yes, I see websites all the time. But the worst offenders I see are people at farm markets and things like that, and holistic fairs and things. They make soap and they make all these claims on it. And, I don't care if it's a salve, a body butter, a soap, whatever. It doesn't cure. Stop saying it cures, fixes, repairs, hydrates, makes you look young. No. First of all, you'd have to go through the FDA, and there may be other regulating bodies too, but at the very least, you'd have to go through the FDA to get regulated. So you would have to pay out of your own pocket to have your product tested, each product, not like one blanket testing. Thousands of dollars per product. So if you sell 30 bars of soap, 30 different types of bars of soap, and you make claims on each one of them, each one of those has to go through thousands of dollars in testing. And it takes forever to get approved by the FDA, and you'd have to go through meetings and meetings and meetings, and you'd have to lawyer up basically because you could never navigate that. Not to mention the fact you're just asking for trouble when you do this stuff. You're asking to either be sued because somebody had an allergic reaction or your product didn't do what you said it did, fined by some governmental agency, and good luck escaping that. Or you could even lose your business. They can shut you down. Just stop doing that. It's not cool. It's not true. It's not legal. Just don't do it. You make soap. We make soap. We make soap. That's it. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you got something out of that list. Hey, if you've got another myth or wives' tale that I didn't mention here, do me a favor, put those in the comments down below. I'd like to see them for myself. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a top 20 at some point if we can get that far. But if you did enjoy this video, do me a favor. Would you consider giving this video a like, subscribe to the channel maybe, and click that little bell icon so you don't miss the fat guy with the beard talking about soap. See ya.